Hey there, party people. Welcome to the video. I'm your host with the most, the one and only Mr. David Estacado. And I'm here with my buddy from another nutty, the one and only, my good friend, Mr.
Rob, the movie guy. Thank you, everybody, for joining us over here, guys. Today, we're going to be doing our review here for Terminator 2 in our Terminator series here, leading up to Dark Fate. So before we get into our review here, let us roll the trailer real quick here.
Hit it.
I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle.
"29-year-old female diagnosed as acute schizoaffective disorder. She believes that a machine called a Terminator was sent back through time to kill her.
My son, he's in great danger.
Are you the legal guardian of John Connor?
What's he done now?
There was a guy here this morning looking for him, too.
Yeah, a big guy on a bike.
I wouldn't worry about him.
Get down.
Who sent you?
You did. 35 years from now, you reprogrammed me to be your protector here.
He's a Terminator like you, right?
Not like me. T-1000, advanced prototype.
Kill us all!
Go! Come with me if you want to live. We don't have much time. Excellent.
That's definitely you.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Stay down!
I'll be back.
Man, that just so nostalgic. I remember watching and seeing that trailer.
Really?
Yeah. Like,
What was that? What was that experience like for you? Because honestly, I don't remember ever seeing the trailer at all as a child.
like I just, it was so nostalgic because like I was freaking out, you know, like a Terminator movie. Okay, cool. And man, that iconic. I don't
Yeah.
do that at least once a day. I don't have a good day because it just, that beat just gets stuck in your head, like you know, and it's just so iconic. And can you believe that actually came from him hitting a cast iron with a hammer? That's how they did the noise for that song.
No, I did not know that.
A little bit of trivia there.
Oh, that's interesting. I had no idea. So, okay, well, so let's get into this here because clearly we both love the film. And we mentioned before in the last review that this is actually the first film we saw before the Terminator here. So this was just our introduction to the series here. And I have to say, though, that it's by far one of the best films I've ever seen. I'm sure you may have the same sentiments, too. So why don't you share us with your thoughts on that?
Like, this is one of those movies that, in my opinion, is one of those rare few movies that the sequel is better than the first one. Yeah. James Cameron did everything he did right in the first one and just kind of upped the ante. And what I really liked, especially going into this movie, spoilers now, I think you were the same thing with me. We watched the extended cut, and I enjoyed the extended cut over the theatrical cut.
Right.
I also remember watching the cable TV version, and I remember, I think the first time we saw it, I think my brother actually paid for the actual theatrical cut. Like, we actually sat down and watched like I'm thinking maybe the pay-per-view version, maybe.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Those were back in the days, man. You had to pay that $6.99 or whatever the cost was for pay-per-view.
I think we actually sat down and watched the entire theatrical cut version of the movie. And man, like the pacing was amazing.
Yeah.
The story was amazing, and they take everything from that and just up the ante. And you asked me a question in the last video. watching Terminator 2, do I get a new appreciation for it? Yes. You know why? Because they took everything from that first movie and kind of give you the okie doke at the beginning of the movie, where they send it. Well, depending on which cut you watch, but I think it beautifully starts off with that sequence with showing the future and everything, and Sarah Connor talking about that was a fantastic job of kind of starting it up.
Yeah.
But what I really enjoyed is kind of really how they set it up to kind of show that, ambiguously showing that Arnold Schwarzenegger may have still been the bad guy, and you still kind of question it throughout. Like, is he the bad guy? Is he? Yeah. And then they give you that flip where like, oh no, he's actually here to save John Connor.
Yeah.
But man, what a film! What a film! Yeah. They took the formula from the first film and just kind of really, really played with it.
They just
really
moved it up pretty much.
Yeah, still the same thing except for Sarah Connor. It's John Connor that they're going after. The machines send out the T-1000, and John Connor himself, I guess, sends back the T-800 or 100 to come back to time.
Yeah.
To protect himself and his mother. So, man, that's all. I can keep going, man.
Yeah. Well, I share the same sentiments as you do too, because this was we talked about previously with the Terminator, where the way James Cameron directs this film, it's you mentioned about the theatrical cut. It's having watched that film, for me the film is near flawless for me. I mean, granted, there's some things we'll get into kind of in our mixed thoughts or maybe negatives here, but it's such a funny little concept where everything works so well on screen. The pacing works, the acting is incredible too. You've got Linda Hamilton, where she started off in the first Terminator as being this very docile woman, and towards the end of the first film, she is pretty much becoming this hardened soldier, if you will. And then this film, many years have passed by, of course, and she is just a totally different person now. And then you have John Connor, who is this, kind of a delinquent, kind of a child. But as the story progresses, you see that leadership in him starting to come to fruition, where his mother is pretty much bearing him down, and he's like, Mom, you got to give me some breathing room here, and you can see that back and forth, and it works so well. And then, of course, we got that developing relationship between the Terminator and John Connor, where this was like the one of the most wonderful aspects of the film, where you have a child who befriends a robot, and the robot at the end befriends him too, and understands the value of becoming a human, where to the point where he was more human than the two main characters at the end of the film. And it has one of the most saddest scenes you'll ever see, which you have that thumb going down and John Connor's crying. Sarah, I think at the end of the film, cries. So I remember seeing that as a kid, and even now, I'm not ashamed to admit it, but I still get so emotional about that, because it's so compelling, And like I said, this is one of the best films I've ever seen in my entire life. And you mentioned one of the rare occasions where the sequel surpasses the first one. I have no arguments in that, because that is like, it had everything you could want in a film, especially in an action film of that caliber, because the quality of the film is so good. The special effects were great. Even now, this film being coming out in 1991, you look at it now, of course, they kind of just mess with the CGI a little bit to kind of enhance a little bit for the quality of the DVDs and 4Ks. It holds up so well.
Man, it really does. The set pieces, the action pieces, the character development. Again, I enjoyed the theatrical version. I enjoyed the extended cut over the theatrical version, because it adds little nitbits of a little bit more motivation motivation for Sarah Connor, and what I think is the budding relationship between him and the T-800 or Terminator, and you can kind of see more of that relationship between him and John Connor and Sarah Connor. You can see how she's reserved and still kind of afraid. One of the perfect scenes that I actually really enjoyed was one of the extended scenes where they're in the theatrical cut. You did ask, he has the capacity to learn to be more human. Yeah. But the conversation goes where in the extended cut where he has an inhibitor chip that doesn't allow him to do so. Right. So they decide to remove the chip. And as they're removing the chip, you see that reservation in Sarah Connor where she's like, I could take it out. I could take out the things that's been giving me nightmares this time. I could get rid of it right now. But John stops her. It's like, no, if you do that, you're now no more human. Like, you just give him a chance to be human. He's protecting me. This whole point.
Right.
And that's that John Connor of the future starting to kind of butt out too.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you also kind of get more of a background where one of the things I thought it was interesting that James Cameron added to the film where you have certain elements of the T-1000 where, especially at the end of the scene, at the end of the film where they're in that steam oil factory and you see that it's a hot environment. And when a T-1000 starts grabbing onto certain objects, like his skin starts to melt in and camouflage with the material that he's holding on to the point where he becomes stuck with it. And you can see that reaction he's having. He's like a little confused. Like those are little nuances of like even a machine kind of picking up on like something's not right or he's a little confused by that. And it never occurred to me that that little moment in the film would actually kind of help develop the story in such a short span of time that he added those sequences there. I mean, so when you watch the film now, I know you mentioned that you have more of an appreciation for it, but when you go back and watch this extended cut now, do you still have the same reaction every time where do you still get that you still have the same emotional attachment to it? Because every time I watch the film, I always cry. After that film, I really do. I always cry because it is told so, and I've seen the film, I don't know, maybe 50 times at least. And now with this new extended cut, because you have more of that background, the developing of that relationship between the characters there, it's even more. I have more of an emotional attachment to where
especially at the very beginning, like
Rivers.
At the very beginning, the first scene is you see Sarah Connor get abused and beat up by the orderlies, which kind of shows some more of her anger later on. Scenes, and it kind of makes a lot more sense, especially like after she goes like, dude, I did what I had to do for 6 months. You promised me I could go see my kid. You promised all this, and I did all this for nothing. No, she just goes ballistic, and it just kind of really shows the anger and the rage of A, not being believed, B, being held captive against her will at this point, and getting treated the way she is. Was a great start, and then that kind of the dream sequences was amazing.
That Reese pops in.
Yeah. Oh man. Like, and to think, Michael Biehn again, kind of reprise that character was amazing. And then the ending sequence. Oh, that's so iconic at this point. The little playing on the swing and a family and the kids, and then just seeing them kind of be vaporized was just kind of like, whoa. Like it really gave some depth into what she was experiencing.
Well, you mentioned about Michael Biehn coming back for that sequence in the film here too. The first time I saw the extended cut, that completely caught me off guard. Like I did not expect that cameo where we have Kyle Reese make a comeback in a dream sequence, of course. But it was one of those things where I wonder, because of the way the film is being played around here, it shouldn't have worked, right? But it's done so well. You mentioned something before about the hospital scenes where you kind of see where Sarah goes through abuse pretty much during her stay at the hospital there. Did you feel for her more knowing where she was coming from with that rage that she's, the way she talks to John throughout the film as well, since she gets reunited with him and wanting to destroy the chip of the T-800? Like, do you have more sympathy for her now, knowing what she had gone through with those added scenes in there, rather than kind of just looking at her as a badass? I mean, she's a badass woman, don't get me wrong, but do you kind of notice
sympathy? But it kind of really set up to her relationship with John a lot better.
Yeah,
and her relationship with the T-800, because even when she freaked out when she saw him, and like John's like, no, relax, he's helping, blah blah blah. It was like, oh, like it really kind of like set the tone. Like, no. Yes, the movie did an okay job, but that really kind of set up the motivation. Like she has to find her kid, and she was like very protective of John throughout the movie. And I could think that really kind of set the tone for that. Like you have to find your kid. Remember the message. Like it kind of gave her, okay, this is coming from from Kyle himself, the father of my child. So I think that gave her more of an emotional attachment and more of a reason to to be so guarded with John.
Yeah, and you also realize too that she's still madly in love with Kyle Reese, having gone through what she did in the first film, and that kind of just gave a little reminder for you, like, you know, she was in love and her heart was broken after what the Terminator did in the previous film, and she never let that go, and as a result has become more hateful towards that machine, which we understand why, but. Yeah, man. You know, one thing I want to get into too is the action scenes, because this film has so many iconic moments that you have the action sequence where the T-1000 is chasing the Terminator and John Connor on the highway when that big semi truck, and you got that old famous sequence where they're coming into what is it, some sort of like. Some sort of line where they break through a fence, and I mean, like that. You've got that sequence, and of course, when they're breaking Sarah out of the hospital too, you get that chase sequence as well too. I mean, there's so many iconic moments in that scene.
The elevator sequence,
right,
and then like the sequence with the they eventually meet up with the Cyberdyne employee or the Skynet employee, or trying to repair the Terminator, and he's like, "Whoa," you know, that was great to see. It's just so many iconic moments, and especially with the T-1000, mimicking and being such a freaking badass antagonist, played wonderfully, amazing
by the great Robert Patrick.
Yeah, so good that he actually does cameos in other movies as a T-1000, which I think my headcanon, I accept that Wayne's World actually takes place in the same universe as the Terminator.
And you also in Last Action Hero 2, he has a brief like 2-second cameo where Schwarzenegger's character in the film walks into the police station. And you see the T-1000 coming right out of the police station. I was like, oh snap! A little reunion right there. So.
The funny thing is that Sylvester Stallone plays the Terminator in that
film. Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty funny twist there.
Yeah,
but, yeah, man. Like this. I think you and I talked about it beforehand, and you mentioned to me in private that you consider this being one of your top films of all time, right?
Yeah, it's this Aliens, but we'll get that to another. I think that's another video. Our top 5 favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is up there. Just because of the direction, the action sequence, the acting, it was a phenomenal cast. Like these actors really did their best. And you mentioned it earlier when we talked about like how Linda Hamilton really played the character. And like at the end, you kind of see glimpses of the character she's going to become.
Yeah,
there's a brief glimpse, and this one you really see that protect. You see that protective mother. You see that warrior. That strong woman presence of like that's going to do everything she can to protect her child and her life. And then just the phenomenal job of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Mr. Patterson, just fantastic. That stone cold look.
Yeah.
Played that part so well, and it was so creepily done.
Well, I also want to talk about him too, where in this film you see the Terminator start interacting with other people outside of Sarah and John, and he's when they go down to Mexico and they reunite with the rebels down south that her and John had become acquainted with from previous years, and he's interacting with the little boy. He picks him up and he's like looking at him. He's a little perplexed by seeing someone that small. And then John previously was trying to get him to, in that extended cut, we saw that he's trying to get him to smile and show him, you got to learn to smile like a regular person. That way you don't look like a dork or whatever. And then the Terminator looks at someone and starts scanning their faces and see how they, form the smile. He turns around, looks at John, and creates a smile, and it's like the most awkward looking smile. And John's like, "Yeah, make sure you work on that." And then that face right back to that stoic, robotic look was perfect. So. Arnold Schwarzenegger, as the years has gone by for him, he's gotten a lot better with his acting. And this film, I think, showcases his flexibility and becoming a very robotic character, but then slowly evolving into kind of having those human characteristics that John Connor was trying to bring out of him, and he does that so well too. Of course, with the direction of James Cameron, who knows what he wants out of his actors. But yeah, man, like this is there's a reason why this is his most iconic role, because he does a great job. in this movie here. And I also want to mention that this is also, I think, Edward Furlong's first film, if I'm not mistaken, too, right? And being introduced in the Terminator 2 series.
One of his first major roles.
I think you're right, but I think if I recall, and I have to look into it again, but I think this is his first major Hollywood role, period. Because I know James Cameron had went through like a row of boys to do the audition process and trying to find the right actor for this part, and he did a phenomenal job. I don't think anyone else has really done a great job outside of Edward Furlong and really capturing the attitude and the personality of what we've all come to know and love as John Connor here, because the dude was spot on in his evolution too, where being this delinquent kid to a leader and a very sympathetic character too. I mean, dude, this guy was phenomenal, and I mean, when you look at him now, everyone can't look past him as John Connor because he's done a great job in this form too. But
well, I have seen him in other movies, so I kind of see him like in other roles as well. But for sci-fi fans, I think it's probably one of his most prominent roles.
Yeah, it's probably the most prominent role he's ever been. Yeah. Well, all right. Well, I want to kind of get into some of the negatives here because I talked about it before in the first film, where some things just don't make sense. How they go back in time, and then whatever is left back in that time period is a catalyst of what's going to be happening in the future. So
it's that one chip that was left over from the arm from the old Terminator. You actually see that in the little cylinder thing when they come out.
Right. So it's one of those weird things where it's already happened in the future, but yet they're going to go back in time, and that's going to be the things that's going to set the downfall of humanity. So it's so weird though. But like when we talked about before, you don't think about it because the film is shot so well. I mean, that's really the only negative I can really think of. But it's so minute now that it's because the film's so good. It doesn't really make a difference for me because it's not an issue for me at this point. But it does stick out from time to time when I watch it. Like, this doesn't make any sense. But oh well. But one thing I want to talk about too is since we're talking about the extended cut here, the alternate ending for the film. You've seen that there. Do you think if they kept that, would the film have become much better than it is already now, or do you think with the ending that we've got with this original cut here, do you think that would have made a difference there for you?
Well, I think they needed a happy ending. I think it's one of those alternate timeline type of things. I kind of think it was just kind of this was the potential future as good as it was going to get for that situation. And just to kind of see them kind of be happy at the end was all right, cool. I liked it. I think it's the only thing I prefer from the original to the theatrical cut was the original ending, then over to this ending, because it kind of did leave it open for the franchise to continue.
Yeah, but that ambiguous ending.
Yeah, and it's nice to know that at this point, at one point in an alternate timeline, that they're happy and that humanity's safe.
Yeah, so let's talk about that ending real quick because I'm not sure if in case anyone else watching this video hasn't seen this before, but the alternate ending was John Connor has grown up and he has a daughter, and Sarah Connor is obviously a grandmother now, and I don't know what year it is, but it's definitely like way wherever that point was in the beginning of T2, where you see John Connor with the scars already leading rebellion. 20, yeah, something like that. So you have that alternate version of reality now, where they stopped Skynet to take over the world, if you will, and so yeah, I think looking at it now, it's if they kept that ending, it wouldn't have. I don't know if it would have the same impact if you think about it.
Yeah, that's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm glad that James Cameron added that into the special feature, so we can kind of pick for ourselves. This would have been the better. But I like what we got here, especially now with this extended cut that's been released here. But yeah, I don't know. I can't add anything else here to it. Is there something else you think you can add on to the thoughts?
No, not really negatives. Like the film is darn near perfect. The pacing was amazing. The acting was amazing. The story was a bit convoluted. but it was amazing. It was a fun freaking. There's so many iconic sequences that gets parodied from time to time. The T-1000 itself, the melting, of it coming back together, and how it gets, it gets, back up again. The one-liners, "Hasta la vista, baby."
Yeah. You know what's funny? That you and I both speak Spanish. As a kid, I never heard anyone in Spanish ever say "hasta la vista." I've never heard that. I have since then, but I mean, was that something that you were familiar with, having seen that film?
No, same thing. Like I've never anybody outside of that movie ever say that at all. It wasn't until after the movie that everybody started saying it.
Right.
So like I don't know. Maybe it's a Cali thing. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just so weird. They kind of like, okay, that's weird. But no, like again, the one-liners of this one just amazing. It's just so quotable too. Like and those sequences are just so. It's what makes the movie so fun. Like I know it's coming. Like all right, it's coming. All right, he said that thing. Like and it becomes a creepy smile. Like I actually really enjoy the sequences between him and the Terminator kind of growing. Their growing friendship,
building that bond together,
and then you kind of get to see that Sarah Connor kind of warms up to her too.
Yeah.
That being said, I think the only thing like with the extended cut was you kind of already see his family dynamic, the Cyberdyne employee, but it was kind of cool to see that tension where like, all right, you have a robot in the house, you have Sarah Connor and John Connor in your home, and this is something that you have been building and working to build, and you finally see the completion of your work. And then your kid comes in. Like at first, I was like, you don't really need to see the family, again, because you already have that family dynamic. But that it did kind of help the film.
Yeah.
It did help. Like, oh, okay. You kind of got to see his creation come to life, but at what cost?
Yeah.
But I mean, even with that being said, there's not really much I can really bad say about the movie.
Yeah. So I mean.
So besides some continuity errors, it's not much, So you're telling me, I agree with what you're thinking about regarding setting stuff in time. All this could have been avoided if you never set it in time in the first place. So, whose fault is it?
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Those are my thoughts here on the film. I mean, unless you have anything else to add to this here.
No, I mean, besides that, I love the film. It's one of my top 10 movies of favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
That anyways. And I think other people would agree. Like this is almost a darn near perfect movie. I don't think I could see anybody else playing these characters at all. Linda Hamilton did an amazing job. Arnold Schwarzenegger did an amazing job. James Cameron kind of shot it and just did it. Just did everything he did with the first one. Just upped the ante and did a fantastic job. Like there's no. I mean, it's part of that era of action flicks that just I think it almost started the boom around the time.
Yeah, well, that film I think almost pretty much changed the action genre. Where now, ever since because that movie kind of came out post '80s, where you don't that '80s flair just doesn't work anymore. Excuse me. And James Cameron really just like you mentioned up the ante with the action, where you couldn't go back to what you saw back in the '80s. Like now, that's pretty much was the pedestal of okay, well this is a game changer. We have to do that from now on, or something better than that. Because after what you saw in T2, how can you go back to no offense to Predator, but how can you go back to that? Even though Predator is a great film, you can't go back to Commando. You couldn't go back to Tango and Cash. You just couldn't do that anymore because this was now the new precedent for action films. And James Cameron is just is a game changer. Every film he's done, excuse me, that he's done post T2 or even Terminator, Aliens for that matter, he's always up the ante when it comes to filmmaking, and this is a prime example of that as well too. So I mean,
I forgot in the last video where you see Kyle Reese's character kind of like with the gun in his hand. That was the inspiration for the box cover art for Metal Gear for Nintendo. And,
really?
You can clearly see it's clearly Michael Biehn. There's no denying it. That's not Snake. It's clearly Michael Biehn. Like, check it out, dude. Go and look it up. It was like the box art for like the original Metal Gear for the for the NES and the Famicom.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, that goes to show you how much of an influence that film has. I mean, it's, dude, man. Like you said, man, this is one of my favorite films of all time. Like, it's definitely up there for me. But yeah, man. Well, those are our thoughts here in the film here too. If for anyone out there has seen the film, what did you think of it? Have you guys seen the extended cut? Because like David and myself, man, we think the extended cut is 10 times better than the theatrical cut, and the theatrical cut is fucking amazing. But this extended cut is
amazing. It's almost a perfect film.
I agree. Yeah, man.
I mean, there's not much to say. Like, we could go on and on and on, but tell us what you think.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you love the movie? I doubt you hate the movie. If you do, tell us why. Why would you hate this amazing movie?
What's wrong with you too if you hate the film?
How can you hate it? I mean, leave us a comment down below. Hit it seriously. Let us know what you guys think. And if you like this, please check out the rest of what we got to do, because we do something like this. We're constantly working on this. So we're constantly recording like twice, 3 times a week to get this content out to you guys. We love doing it. We're as passionate as you guys. And that's what we want to see. How passionate you guys are about it. Argue with us. We'll reply. Just let us know. And if you like that, please check out the rest of the stuff that the NRW crew does. We do comic books, movies, obviously, video games, and other reviews when it comes to pop culture. And Rob, where can they follow all this awesome information?
Oh, so you can follow NRW on social media. You can follow NRW at the NRW on Twitter and on Instagram, New Release Wednesdays. And you can follow myself here on social media. You can follow me on Twitter at RobMedina0585 and on Instagram, Rob_Medina0585. And you can also follow my buddy from another nutty on the left-hand side. Where can they follow you at?
You can follow me over at David Is Disaster on my Instagram and on my Twitter. You can look me up on Facebook as well on David Estacado. That being said, you can also follow News Release Wednesdays on Facebook, where we are constantly dropping content on there and news when it comes to pop culture. Everything from movies, news, video game news. We are constantly dropping stuff so you can be in the know just as we are. And if you like everything that we just did today and everything else that we do here at NRW, hit the like and subscribe button. Subscribe, hit that bell notification so you can get all the news to you the second it comes out, because we're constantly putting content almost on a daily basis. Yeah. If it ain't us, it's the rest of the NRW crew. So, with that being said, hasta la vista, baby.
Salud.
Cheers.